Inside Crime is brought to you by DoTERRA. The DoTERRA system helps stop opioid misuse before it starts. With DoTERRA, unused prescription opioids and other drugs are gone for good. Learn more at doterrasystem.com. I'm Angeline Hartmann. As a journalist, I've worked with cops and victims of crime all over the country. My craft is storytelling. My passion is crime fighting. Welcome to Inside Crime, everybody. We're bringing you today's episode from a very special place, the home of a dear friend of mine, Tom Morris Jr. from A&E's hit television show, Live PD. And we're in what's known as the man cave here at Tom's house. Now, just to give you a little background, many years ago, we worked together at the legendary crime-fighting television show, America's Most Wanted, and Tom was a producer and correspondent on that show for 20 years. Now he's back on television as an analyst on Live PD, and that show is in its third season. When Live PD launched in 2016, no one could have predicted its success. If you're not familiar with the show, the concept is pretty simple. The show takes viewers on a live ride-along with police across the country. So I want to play for you right now just a tiny taste of it.
I refuse! Will you marry me?
Don't.
If you kick me, I am gonna tase you.
That's my license firearm, sir.
Is that your license crack right there, too?
Come towards me right now.
You got any weapons?
Ready to go?
The host of Live PD is Dan Abrams, and Tom is an analyst along with Sergeant Sean Larkin from the Tulsa Police Department. They help navigate viewers throughout the night, giving insight into what audiences are seeing in real time. So it's very, very cool. Now, the show is so popular that Live PD fans just can't get enough of it. If they don't watch it live, they're recording it. And last year, it was the #1 DVR'd show in all of 2017. And the biggest thing about this show is that it has a huge, huge social media following. Fans basically have a massive Twitter party across the country where they're just connected live and talking to each other throughout the show. Now, the fan base is called Live PD Nation. That's kind of started out organically, and they're a loyal, diehard bunch. So on today's Inside Crime, I'm going to talk to Tom about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff of Live PD and about Live PD Nation, and we'll chat about his crime-fighting days at America's Most Wanted. Also, he's going to tell us about the toughest interview he's ever done in his career as a reporter. Right now, let's start off with one more clip from A&E's Live PD.
We're live with police around the country.
You can go from 0 to 100 really fast.
We're going to break this scene down for you. Here it comes. Look at that. The thing is traveling right over the strips. Eagle-eyed fans on Twitter caught this.
That guy just spit drugs out. Live PD Nation does it again.
That was exciting, wasn't it?
Tom Morris, welcome to the show, Inside Crime.
Thank you.
So awesome to have you here.
It is.
Kicking off the show.
It is. This is awesome. And who knows more about crime than you and perhaps me?
You. Well, that's what we're going to talk about. First, let's talk about, the phenomenon of Live PD.
Yeah.
Are you still pinching yourself?
You know, every time I walk into the A&E building in New York, I still have to tell myself that this has really happened because, 2 years ago, I'd been out of television full time since America's Most Wanted ended in 2011, I'd done some freelance stuff popping up on different crime shows here and there, like Snapped or Fatal Attraction or whatever, as a crime expert. But I had put TV in the rearview mirror. I became a special police officer and then moved into uniformed diplomatic security. And at the time when the phone rang from our old colleague, Kara Kurtz, who is one of the co-creators, and her production company helps co-produce Live PD with Big Fish Entertainment. And I was working as an analyst at that point for the Department of Navy. You know,
and you weren't really thinking about TV anymore. You thought,
no.
well, I've moved on.
No, I put TV in the rearview mirror. You know, I had a top secret clearance, and I was comfortable being a government contractor, and that's what I was doing when the phone rang. And she said, "Hey, we've got this crime show called Live PD, and it just started about 6 weeks ago. Can you come up and audition?" And so,
and you had no idea what Live PD was at the time.
No, I looked it up and watched the episode, and got an idea, and caught a train up there and went in the studio with one of the executive producers at the time, David Doss. He played the part of Dan Abrams in my audition. So we were watching clips of Live PD, and then he and I were in the studio, and he would, well, Tom, what do you think about what was going on there? What were they doing? I was explaining my perspectives and insights on what we'd just seen happen. And after that, we wrapped it up, and they took me into master control, and everybody was like,
smiling,
like clapping and smiling, like, "Where have you been all of our lives?" And I was like, "I've been just down working for the government, just chilling, So next thing I know, I'm on the show, and boom, we hit 1 million viewers, and boom, by summer we hit 2 million viewers. And
but when all that happened, the show had already been on the air, like you
6
said.
weeks. I came in on episode 8.
Wow.
I came in on episode 8. There were 2 law enforcement. One was a retired police chief. He was one of the crime analysts, and another was a detective or somebody from Dallas. They were the first 2 crime analysts. And
I think in the beginning,
yeah.
the show was just kind of testing itself out and seeing what worked and didn't work. And a lot of shows do.
Yeah, it was. But it was perfect for, it was like everything that I had done throughout my career prepared me for this opportunity. Having worked with crime, with America's Most Wanted for almost 19 years, having actually been a police officer, been a law enforcement officer as well. And when the opportunity came, I just fell right into it. And I remember our boss, Lance Heflin, who first gave me my first on-air job on America's Most Wanted, took me from behind the camera as a producer and threw me in front of it on primetime television. And I remember his advice to me was very simple. He said, "You just be yourself and you'll be fine."
Wow.
And that's all I've ever done is just be myself. I don't have any pretensions about, I'm so and so. And no, it's just the first episode, a guy got pulled over and he had a bunch of drugs in his car. And I said, they came back to Dan and myself in the studio, and I said, "Dan, to quote that rapper Flo Rida, he was riding dirty." So a few minutes later, Dan says to me, getting a lot of tweets coming in saying, "That song wasn't by Flo Rida, that was by Chameleonaire. You got your rappers mixed up."
Whoops.
This is my first episode, right? And I'm like,
oh man, they're never having me
like,
back again.
Right, I'm like, Dan, when they come back to us in the studio, I'm gonna correct it. I will take that hip hop L, okay? So when they came back, I corrected it, and we just had fun with it. It's just like, yeah, hey, thanks for telling me, Live PD Nation. And the words Live PD Nation came out of my mouth at some point, and that's where that came from.
I see.
I coined the term just randomly saying Live PD Nation, and
well, it stuck.
It's a whole phenomenon.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I said, you must still be pinching yourself because
I am. I just thank God. I really do. I thank God for all the blessings that come my way in life, and I'm incredibly humbled by this. And season 3, I mean, when I signed the contract for season 1, I just had no idea. I had a feeling this show would have longevity. I really did. I thought it would last because I knew the audience for Cops and all of these crime shows. Cops has been on TV in pretty much for over 30 years consistently with no commentary, with no live angle. People are still watching Cops. And so I had a feeling that the show would have legs and would get some traction. But, I had no idea it would it would be at 143 episodes by the end of season 2. You know, when I came on, it was initially just Friday night. And
so they really were just kind of feeling it out.
It started.
And what did they tell you? It was, I guess they were just testing you out as well, right? And then they didn't say, "Oh, you're going to be on a regular on the show." They
offered me a contract pretty early in the game.
Okay.
I was pretty much signed to the show pretty quickly after within a month of making my debut. I was signed to the show.
Wow.
And then, as we got into the spring, or I guess maybe the summer,
because for a while it was just you and
it was just Dan and myself, and then Styx came in. I guess in season 2, Styx came in as a crime analyst, and then the three of us gelled together. And the chemistry that people see between us, it's genuine. I mean, we really like each other. We're friends. We're like three bros, and
I think that's why it works, because it is real. You know, you're not faking it, and. No. You can see that you enjoy each other. You guys are kind of giggling to yourselves when you really want to say something, but you can't or won't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we talk when we're not working. I check on Styx, make sure he's safe out there in the streets of Tulsa. You know, he's still with the Tulsa gang unit. He's a sergeant. He's out there. They're out there getting it in with the real gangsters in Tulsa. And so, I call and check on him, pray for him all the time, make sure, Lord, keep him safe. And Dan Abrams is just the busiest guy in show business.
Yes,
and
he is.
He's just a great guy. I'd been on his show when I was with AMW. I went on one episode of his show on MSNBC to talk about some crime case that was manhunt that was going on or something. But I was a remote studio.
So you didn't.
So I didn't even meet him in person. No.
Okay.
So I didn't meet Dan Abrams in person until I did the first show with him. You know, that night when I showed up to do that first show with him, that's the first time I met him.
No kidding.
And so that chemistry that we started to develop that night. You know, it literally started from right then and there. And I think it really kind of, the whole riding dirty thing kind of broke the ice and told him, hey, this guy is going to be a little bit fun. This guy's going to be fun. In addition to being serious about what's going on out here, he's going to be fun.
Well, I will say, I did not watch Live PD from the beginning. But what I've done is watched certain episodes, portions of them from the beginning. And I did see the evolution. You can see, like, Dan was a little bit more serious. And I think when you came along, that loosened things up and livened things up. And Dan felt more comfortable allowing him to show his personality, you know? And then when Styx came along, the three of you together, it's just magical.
Yeah. I remember one night Styx dabbed on the show. And I was like, it was something came up on the show. Somebody in the field, I think, dabbed. And when it came back to us in the studio, Styx, like, and I was just like, we just lost it. Like, oh, my God. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, I get paid to have this much fun. You know what I mean? It's like, for Friday, Saturday night, I just sit here, and I don't know what's going to happen any more than the audience does. We don't either. That's the beauty of the show. Let's go here. Let's go there. We're taking you to different places around the country, from Florida to Missouri to South Carolina to Washington State on the West Coast to wherever. So, you get to actually see how police do their jobs in different jurisdictions, in different regions, different colloquial norms. You see how people live here versus how people live there. And it's sort of like a travelogue for people who want to follow law enforcement.
Right. What do you think? I know we talked about the chemistry, but do you think timing has something to do with the success of the show right now? Because of all the attention, whether it's positive or negative, with law enforcement right now, right? And it gives an inside look.
That was Dan Cesario, the creator of Live PD. That was, I think, as he's expressed it, his vision was to give people a glimpse of policing in real time from different places and let the audience decide for themselves based on what they see. And some people say, well, the officers are going to be on their best behavior because
they know they're being recorded.
But they're being recorded 6 ways to Sunday out here by millions of people with cell phones, with their own body cameras issued to them. So that's really not a factor. Majority of police officers in this country know that any action they take out in public might well be filmed anyway. So those that are going to do their jobs correctly and properly are doing their jobs correctly and properly all the time, regardless of whether they're on Live PD or not.
Not only is it a good show, like you said, because what did you tell me? What did you tell me a while back when you first were explaining
I
When you
said
first
it's like
something about
NFL Red
steroid-
Zone.
Yes,
I said it's like NFL Red Zone, but instead of football games, we're following cops in 6 different places. Now we're up to 8 jurisdictions now. We were at 6, and we expanded to 8. So, yeah, that's basically how it is. Instead of going from the Browns-Pittsburgh game, let's go to Pasco County, where they've just, had a store burglarized, and they're chasing a burglary suspect,
I mean, I don't think people can appreciate what happens in the control room to
Till you
put
see
all
it.
this together,
Yeah.
unless you're really standing there. Can you kind of describe for your your listeners and viewers out there?
First of all, Live PD is somewhat of a technological marvel in terms of
Amazing.
television production, because when they started trying to create this show and they knew they were going to be following live action, well, who has the most experience at doing that? People that work in the world of sports. So our director, John Gonzales, is one of the most legendary sports directors of the last 40 years. He was actually in retirement, chilling out in Palm Beach, retired. And when they called him and said, listen, we need a man of your caliber to try to direct this complicated show. It's going to have a lot of moving parts. There's like 90 channels of audio coming into Master Control. There's
That's crazy.
35 video feeds coming in. And the majority of the core people that helped put the show together from a technical standpoint are all veteran sports guys. Larry Bartosolis, there's a whole bunch of people, and the rest of them are A-list freelancers who work on other shows in New York, like Wendy Williams during the daytime, or GMA, or our makeup artists work for Today's Show, and so it's a whole list of A-list freelance people that help put this show together.
And they can do that because it's at night on Friday and Saturday.
They
so
can.
This is
It makes for some long days for some of them, but yeah.
But when you're having fun, it's all good.
But yeah, the show. It took the knowledge of people that were veteran sports people. John Gonzales invented the spider cam that flies over football fields. The one that's on the string that goes over the football. He created that. He was the first director to ever put mics on football players during the USFL.
Gonzo.
He's directed many of the opening ceremonies of the Olympics, which that's one of the toughest directing jobs in all of television, is to direct the opening ceremony of the Olympics. He's done it multiple times. Going back to Seoul, Korea in 1988. So that's the kind of talent that Dan Cesario assembled to make this show happen. And it all just gelled and fell into place.
I know from the one time I was in studio with you guys, what I noticed really was Gonzo, we're talking about John Gonzales, Gonzo was so calm, cool, and collected. He's at the helm,
He is.
right, in the control room. And so that trickles down to everybody else. And he said to me, well, I have to be calm, because if I lose my mind, then can you imagine what this
It goes crazy
would be?
in the Master Control. There's a lot of wailing and moaning and gnashing of teeth during that 3 hours. And Gonzo is that soothing voice. He has to stay focused on a lot of different things. And he does. And when I hear him in my IFB and I hear him in my ear, go Tom, or all right, Tom, we're coming to you. It's a comforting presence.
It really is.
That he's the director. So it's awesome working with him. I love him dearly. He's a great foodie too. This guy knows food and he loves food, and he's a refined taste. A wine cellar apparently that is epic in proportions.
Man.
Yeah, he's a really classy guy.
Wow. Let's talk about social media and Live PD, because while Live PD is very popular, there is a portion of it that is, it was an organic thing that happened on Twitter and social media. And I there are some viewers out there who don't even realize that this is all going on in this arena.
Right.
Talk about that a little bit, because it has really changed the way you operate, but also has had a major impact on the show itself.
Yeah, it's definitely been instrumental in growing the audience. When I started on the show, I had a Twitter account with about 128 followers. And I had that Twitter account since maybe 2012, when I had gone on a few crime shows, and they said, well, do you have a Twitter account we can put up on when you're, on TV? And I was like, oh, yeah, I got one. So I didn't have any followers, and then I come on Live PD, and next thing I know, I got first night a couple of thousand. It just keeps growing and growing. Now it's close to
it's
over
crazy.
80,000 followers, and
Crazy.
now I'm on Reddit as well, and there's tens of thousands there and like 30,000 followers on Instagram, and it just keeps growing and growing.
So what happens is people live tweet during the show, and they talk to each other. They're having the same conversations that you guys are having.
And we're talking to them, too. I'm tweeting with them during the show. I mean, I'm responding, and Dan's looking at, Dan's looking at tweets coming in. I'm looking at tweets coming in. Sticks is looking at stuff coming in, and we're responding to a lot. We're interacting with them during the show.
That's what makes it so successful.
I'm sending happy birthdays out to loyal. Today's Aunt Mamie's birthday in Kansas. Happy birthday, Aunt Mamie. Then
Awesome. I'll
snap a selfie with Sticks and me right there, like, and we'll send it to her right there in real time. Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, social media has been incredible. I remember when America's Most Wanted got AMW.com in 2000.
Yes.
And, we thought that was a big deal. We had a website, we had a website, and people could call, send tips in. And we caught fugitives through the website with people sending in tips. But, that seems like another century now compared to where, it really does. It just seems like a long, long time ago, and it's far more different than where we are now with people just instantaneously. Everything is seen, heard, and said.
What do you think about that? Because, you really take your time to engage people. I know you mentioned you do this during the show, which is very cool, and they love it. But I see you, sending pictures and doing live videos during the week. You're at church. You're on the drive. You're on, and it's almost like, for me, I think you take them into your world, and they appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's because I and all of us at Live PD appreciate them. We've had, just a lot of love from the Live PD Nation, as they're known now. And, they are so invested in this show. It's uncanny how invested they are. And so for us to respond to them, I can't respond to every single tweet and every single Instagram or Reddit.
I think they understand that.
But I pick my places and times and respond as best as I can, and we owe them that because they have made this show the #1 show on television with the 18 to 49 demographic on 2 nights a week, Friday and Saturday night, for 3 hours, 3 solid hours. That's primetime domination. That's I don't think has ever been seen before, other than for something like a Monday Night Football that lasts 3 hours. Because this is like a football game, 3 hours long. You know what I mean? And the Live PD Rewind that comes on from 8 to 9 is now coming in the top 10 with 1 million viewers. So there are Saturday and Friday nights now where sometimes A&E has the entire block from 8 to midnight is the #1 network. And that's crazy.
Tom, congratulations. This is so awesome.
It is. I just thank God every day. That's it. I do.
Yep. So happy for you.
Yeah. And I'm happy for you. I'm glad you got this podcast too, because we've been fighting crime a long time. We've seen a lot of things, and we've been through a lot of things out there fighting crime. Dealing with victims of crime. Even in this room right here, that family right there, the Turner family, Carissa Turner, her and her brother and sister witnessed their mother and grandmother murdered on Christmas Eve by their father, Albert James Turner. And, I know
that case is very special to you.
Oh, yeah. They
for those who do not know, why don't you give us a little background?
Part of what made America's Most Wanted special was that we were not just trying to help law enforcement catch people that had gotten away, but we were also trying to help the victims of the crimes that had been perpetrated on them or their families be brought to justice. And late in the game, somewhere around 2008 or something like that, I think it was, when this case came to me out of Rosenberg, Texas. And it was a guy named Albert James Turner, who was a Texas correctional officer. He was married to a minister's daughter, and he was abusive, and she eventually left him and moved in with her mother and father. Her father was also a pastor, and they had 3 beautiful kids. Carissa was the oldest. She was 12 at the time, I think 11 or 12. Kennedy and Jarius were much smaller. Kennedy was about 3. Jarius was about 6, I believe. And so on It was around Christmas, either Christmas Day or Christmas night or Christmas Eve, something like that. Albert James Turner broke into the house, slit his estranged wife's throat in front of Kennedy, the 3-year-old who was in bed with her when it happened. He walked right past Jarius and then slit his mother-in-law's throat and stabbed her father and fled. So when we got this case, it was 3 weeks old, and he was a fugitive. And Carissa was going to have to be the person to tell me this story. And she was only, 11, 12 years old. And it was the hardest interview I ever did of all the ones I did. I mean, I did a lot of them with victims who, I shared their pain and their tears. But this one was hard. But she was so courageous, and she soldiered through it, and we got through it. And it took a few weeks, but a call came in from Concord, North Carolina, and it was from someone who was a member of a church there. And Concord is a suburb outside of Charlotte that has a big NASCAR speedway. And this person said, "We know that guy. He's a homeless guy." And this was in the wintertime. It was cold. And he said, "This guy is homeless. We know him as Elijah," which I thought was ironic that he'd taken a biblical alias, considering he stabbed a preacher and slit his daughter's throat, and his wife, and he takes a biblical name as a fugitive. I thought that was very bizarre. But anyway, he had frostbite, and they've been helping him at this church and feeding him. And they're the ones that called and reported him, and the Concord police found him near the railroad tracks and arrested him. And he was walking with a cane. I still have his cane.
What?
The cops gave it to me. I have it. Yeah.
That is something.
Yeah, because his feet were so frostbitten from being homeless in North Carolina. Because he was from Texas, where it was warm. And
so the person who called in had watched AMW.
yes,
Was that a direct?
Yes, it was a direct result. Yeah, it was a guy and his wife were watching the show. They were members of the church, and they said, "That's Elijah. That's homeless that we've been helping." And the police went and found him within 24 hours. And I went down there and did the capture story. And when the cops said, "Hey, this is the walker he was using because his feet were so damaged from the frostbite. You want it as a souvenir?" I said, "Yeah, I'll take that as something." Sometimes I look at it and I see it and I think about. It's weird to think, this was the cane of a man who committed such a heinous crime in front of his own children, and he even appealed. He appealed his conviction, there's no winning that appeal, but that's what wrapped it up. It was the direct result capture. I'm friends with that family to this day. As a matter of fact, her and her siblings ended up living with their mother's brother, who's also a pastor, Darren Frank, and Darren and his wife Camilla took in the 3 nieces and nephews, and Camilla and their daughter came to Live PD to New York to see me on set a couple of months ago. And Carissa and all of them are doing fine. Carissa is a missionary now.
Wow.
And ministers to people in prison. Mm-hmm. Albert James Turner is on death row. She had to testify against her father in court. I mean, it was tough, but that just gives you an idea of just the bonds that you form with people, that you formed with people during your years with America's Most Wanted. And when you could call somebody and say, "Hey, we caught them," and you hear their relief and their joy on the other end of the phone. That was the best thing in the world.
It really was.
So for me to be able to profile fugitives now on Live PD and to work with you and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to help find missing children, it's a continuation of that mission, of that work that we were so passionate about all those years with AMW. And by the grace of God, we're able to do it again, and this time on another successful, widely watched show with millions of viewers.
That was a good one, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
He was captured.
Yeah.
And I love that you've kept in touch with the family.
Mm-hmm.
But can we talk about a case where it's either unsolved or the fugitive is still out there that you are passionate about?
From back in those days?
Yeah. Is there anything that was...
For
me, I know I still have one. I've got a couple, but...
I didn't have many of those because my capture rate was around 98% for all those years. Almost everybody I profiled got caught. They used to call me the electronic manhunter because so many people... I mean, the very first case I did for AMW was Irving Razor Jones in East New York, Brooklyn. He had his wife had left him because he was a cokehead and wouldn't work, and he murdered her and her brother. And that was the first case I ever did for AMW. We caught him within like 48 hours. And, even the Tavares case with Chubby Tavares' son, who was murdered from the group Tavares. And Peter Cunningham profiled him, caught him, profiled him on Saturday, caught him on Monday afternoon. So I had a really high capture rate. There were very few that I profiled that didn't get caught. Some, it took years of running them and rerunning them, but there are not many that got away. There was one guy named Juan. I can't think of his name right now. This guy, he committed a murder up in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and he got away. And he got away to South America somewhere, and I don't think he was ever caught. But I don't have many that didn't meet their handcuff date.
Wow, that's awesome, Tom.
It's true.
Inside Crime is brought to you by DoTERRA. The DoTERRA drug deactivation system is an independently tested, safe, and environmentally sound solution that permanently deactivates, destroys, and disposes of unneeded pills, patches, liquids, creams, and films right at home. Be part of the solution to reduce drug abuse. Learn more at doterrasystem.com. Wow, that's awesome, Tom.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Well, what did they call you? What was your nickname?
The Electronic Manhunter.
I love it.
And we've caught 11 fugitives with the help of our Live PD audience, and I think we recovered 6 or 8 missing children with tips that came in from them. So, it's the partnership. I love using the medium of television to do good. I love that, and we've got 3 hours. So if I take a minute or two here to profile a fugitive or try to find a missing child, it's beautiful.
Well, the viewers of Live PD love it.
They do.
I mean, because I think they started out watching Live PD because it's a great show. But along the way, when you brought in The Wanted, that took it to another level. And then
it gives them an opportunity
Yes.
to possibly help solve a crime. That was the successful component to AMW for 25 years, and people want to be able to help. And so they don't know if they're going to see that person at their local drugstore tomorrow or at the supermarket next week, but there's a chance they might. And if they do, they make that call, and we've helped the police catch somebody.
Yep. And with missing children, that has really resonated with viewers of Live PD. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like they're even more invested than The Wanted. And I think perhaps it's because it's children.
It's children, yeah, absolutely. And, as Jesus said, that what you do to the least of these, people that, children disappear, that pain. I mean, you and I have worked on cases like that where children were never found or were found murdered. It's the worst thing in the world to not know where your child is or if they're dead or alive. So people are emotionally invested in that, especially people that are parents. We all as parents, especially understand that innately. So it's I'm just glad we're able to do it, and I love working with Nick Mick, and it's been a great year. It's been a year since we started this. I think it was last year at the Hero Awards when I extended the invitation to work with you guys.
Please tell our listeners how you came up with this great idea.
Kara Kurtz, who's the head of Motivate Media, which is the co-production company that produces Live PD.
Who used to work with us at America's Most Wanted.
Knew Kara since she was an intern right out of college in 1997. And now she's one of the executive producers. And
you knew her when she was a puppy.
I
now
knew her.
She's big dog, right?
Yeah, she's a big dog in the game now. And she's the one who brought me into Live PD, as I said earlier. But I said to Kara, Kara, we're doing Wanteds, but wouldn't it be, I said, I have to go to, I'm going to host the Hero Awards at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And I'm interested in seeing if the EPs of Live PD and here at A&E would be willing to partner with them if they're interested to profile missing kids on Live PD. And so they ran it up the flagpole and it came back, yeah. So I came down there and kind of surprised y'all in the middle of the
You
show
sure
with
did.
I would like to extend this invitation to work with Live PD with Nick Mick and
It was a moment, Tom.
yeah.
It was a
and
moment.
John Walsh was there, and it was it made me happy
Very special.
to be able to do that with him.
Yeah.
It did. And so it's been good. We've been doing our thing together, and you're back on TV in prime time with me, and we're
Grateful,
fighting
Tom.
crime together and doing what we do.
I mean, so many of our family members are together again.
Yeah,
And, as
Because we're like family. Everybody that was at AMW, it was like a family, and it's the same way with Live PD. It's a really close knit group of people.
I think it's a very unique situation because there's only a few of you, right? And you're invested and working towards this common goal. And sometimes it gets crazy and hectic, but at the end of the night, it doesn't matter what happens. It's,
No. Yeah, and at the end of the night, the show's over. We wind down, have a little after party, and relax. And we'll sit there and we'll be sitting there chilling out and eating and so forth, and watching the rerun show at midnight and watching and talking about what happened. And we kind of rehash the show ourselves amongst ourselves, and so it's just fun. I catch the train back on Sunday morning at 3 a.m. from New York and head home, and so I can be at church on Sunday morning, and but that's it. That's what we do.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. We talked about social media and Live PD, how it really has impacted the show. What are your thoughts on Live PD? Let's pretend social media was like this when America's Most Wanted was on. I mean, it was a different time and it was a different type of show, but
It would have been huge. It would have been huge back then. I mean, remember, America's Most Wanted had 4 million viewers on Saturday night when it was canceled in its 23rd year. Live PD's at 2 million viewers now, which on cable is like being at 4 million viewers
right.
on regular one of the four major networks. So on cable, the benchmark of success for a TV show is 1 million viewers, and that demographic, that 18 to 49 demographic, is really what counts the most, more so than how many millions of people. It's what the percentage of people in that demographic, because that's the key demographic for television, is 18 to 49. Those are the people that have the most buying power, the people that So it's
skyrocketing.
It's skyrocketing.
It's on top of the world right now.
It's crushing the demo, and it's interesting for a show that can pull that 18 to 49, because that's teenagers to middle age. People, people that are almost 50 years old. And then it's high in the 25 to 55 demographic as well. I think it's 25 to 55. So if social media had been around, at the level it is now, America's Most Wanted might still be on there for me, because it drives the popularity. And it's amazing to me. They have people at the network that actually crunch these numbers and viewing habits, and there's a social media people that are following the Twitter and Instagram streams throughout the show all night long. They can tell when, for example, a turtle was found on the show tied to a patio with a hole drilled through his shell, and they could tell you after the show that at that moment Twitter traffic spiked when the turtle showed up.
No
Okay?
kidding.
Yeah, they can break it down to actual moments that this happened and the Twitter traffic spiked. Or we jumped from trending at number 4, we jumped to number 1 when this car chase started. Or so it's fascinating to me, just the science of how they're analyzing viewing habits. Here's an interesting one for you. The average person apparently only watches any TV show for something like 10 minutes. That's the average viewership, 10 to 20 minutes. The average person watches Live PD 79 minutes.
What?
Yes.
That's
an
crazy.
actual statistic from the numbers crunchers in the ivory tower there of television at A&E. Yeah. 79 minutes versus the average person only watches the show up to 20 minutes.
Bam.
Because people have so many choices. They're so distracted by so many things. And, they can watch a show on Netflix or on the computer or laptop when they want to watch it. Live PD was the most DVR'd show in 2017. Now think about that. A 3-hour-long show was the most recorded show of 2017 also. So
they want to make sure they catch it.
They don't want to miss
it. They
it.
have to record it.
They don't want to miss it. Yeah.
And I find, just by watching or hearing other people, I find that some viewers, they'll keep on going. They'll make dinner while they're watching it. They'll do other stuff. And then some viewers sit there and watch it religiously, like
all 3 hours. Yeah. They got their snacks, their beverages.
What's interesting about Live PD is there's really like a drum beat before the
leading
show
up
starts.
to the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do our 8 o'clock promo and kind of give people a little taste. Yeah.
And
they're counting down. They start counting down like as
Wednesday.
Soon as, on Monday sometimes,
5 more days, 4 more days.
4 more days, yeah.
Oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah. So it's it's just exciting, and it's a lot of fun, and like I said, it's just a tremendous blessing for me. I tell people that all the TV dreams that I had stopped dreaming have all come true in the last 20 something months. Things that I stopped dreaming about have all come true. I mean, Dan Sticks and I were on a billboard on Sunset Strip back in the summer, and I'm like, somebody comes, they say, hey, you guys, there's a billboard up on Sunset Strip A&E put up for you guys for Emmy consideration. I'm like, and many times I've been down Sunset Strip and seen stars on billboards, right? And it's like, if you had told me I'd be on a billboard on Sunset Strip one day, I mean, I was like, yeah, it was amazing. So
I have to say, I saw that billboard and I started crying.
Yeah,
just
I did too. I did too. I was like, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Lord. I can't believe this. It's just no, it really is. I used to always dream about working in television in New York. That was one of my dreams I had from the time I was in college, majoring in broadcast journalism. And I never worked. I went to New York to do some shoots and stuff during my career, but I never lived or worked in New York. And now I do. I get to work in New York and on a hit show, and it's just one of them dreams. I had that dream since I was a kid, and took till I was 60 years old for it to happen, but it did.
It's awesome, Tom. It's
Yeah.
awesome. And I think the show is it's hit its stride right now with the way it's going, with the fan base, and with the wanteds and missings. It's just, it's really hit its peak.
And we're coming back season 3 with 2 new departments that are going to be really, I think there's going to be a lot more action in season 3, because we're going to be with Salinas, California, in that town. And that town has, it's got a lot of gang activity. And so I think we're going to see some things there we haven't seen maybe before on Live PD. We're also going to be in the county in Michigan where Flint, Michigan is, which is an enormously challenged city right now, and extremely high crime rate with not enough officers to deal with all the calls for service they get. Something like 40,000 calls for service they get a day.
Wow.
And they can barely respond to 1,000 of them because they have so few officers. So we'll be with the sheriff's department there, who also cover Flint. And so I think you're going to see some things there that we haven't seen before also in season 3 on Live PD.
I think that's what keeps it fresh too, is you guys change up the departments and, some departments come and go.
Right.
I know the viewers get attached and they, feel sad when some officers have to leave, but it does keep it fresh, right?
Yes. And the departments to help
they
people
need a break
understand.
Too.
Well, to help people understand, first of all, people say, well, why isn't my department on there? Well, one, the police department or sheriff's department has to agree to do it. And we tend to be with sheriff's departments more because sheriffs are typically elected officials who are in charge of their own department. They don't have to answer to the mayor or city council to make a decision about what they're going to participate in as a department. So that's partly why you see more sheriff's departments on the show, because sheriffs can make their own decisions. But we see departments come and go. Sometimes they sign up for a specific number of shows or a specific number of months. And when that's up, then they opt out. Nobody's making anybody do this. Everyone's doing it because they want to do it. And when they want to opt out, then they can, and they do.
It's interesting. I think some departments are a little weary because they're not sure how they're going to be portrayed on TV, and they don't want to take part in
that's
what
why
they can't control.
That's why it's purely up to when they decide they want to do it, it's been signed off on by all the appropriate authorities in that jurisdiction who have agreed that, okay, we're going to do this. And now it's not so much of an experiment as we go into season 3. You know, season 1, it was a real experiment. You know, let your officers come on TV and police live. I mean, that's going out there.
Yeah.
Sheriff Leon Lott in Richland County, South Carolina, they've been with the show from the very beginning. And they've been through harrowing incidents, dangerous, pursuits and all sorts of stuff, but they've stuck with it, and they've been a great asset to the show. And I'll say this, a lot of these departments that are on Live PD have seen their recruitment increase because people, they look at the show and they watch how Kevin Lawrence and Chris Mastriani and Danny Brown do their jobs, and they say, you know what? I'd like to be a Richland County Sheriff's Deputy. So they get people applying now from all over the country who want to be a Richland County Sheriff's Deputy because they see these people
That's incredible.
Policed with dignity and respect,
Yep.
and they're squared away, and and that's what a lot of people see when they watch these officers. Like, oh man, this officer just went and bought a homeless guy, lunch. Mm-hmm. He didn't have to do it, or let a shoplifter off the hook because the person was so broke and homeless, and they showed empathy for them. So there's so many things that happen on the show that make people that are thinking about becoming law enforcement officers say, I want to be a Pasco Sheriff's Deputy, or I want to be a Greene County Sheriff's Deputy.
Yeah. It's really done a lot, changed the culture for departments across the country and the way people look at law enforcement, I think.
Yep.
So thumbs up all the way around, right?
Absolutely.
What a concept. What do you say to people who want more live PD? I mean, I know you're reading them on Twitter and you're seeing these comments. They're like, we want more. 3 hours isn't enough. And then they say, Fridays and Saturdays, we want, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, I can't,
it's a beautiful
all
thing.
I can say is I appreciate their enthusiasm, and I leave it at that. I appreciate their enthusiasm.
They are enthusiastic, Tom.
Absolutely, they are.
Yeah.
Live PD Nation, man.
Live PD Nation is killing it. I just want to say, it would be really different if that was something you guys planned in your, to me, and maybe they did. Maybe the show planned it or whatever. They thought about social media a little bit. I'm sure they did. But it just seems so organic, the way it just happened.
It was. Definitely. I'm sure that there was a lot of thought put into
social
media aspect.
There's no way they could have planned what has happened.
Yeah, it erupted on its own because viewers just started tweeting and creating their own little viewing clubs and their own Twitter handles for the show, and they created this social media phenomenon.
There are Twitter fan pages for dogs, the canines, and
everybody.
Dan's sweater, your shirt.
People in the UK,
What?
Live PD UK. I tweet with people in England who are watching the show, and it's 6 hours. What 6 hours ahead in England?
Yeah,
something like that. Those people are up at 4 a.m, whatever, watching the show and streaming it in England, Australia, Belize. All over Finland. I'm constantly hearing of places where they're watching Live PD in Italy. I'm like, what? And then we're tweeting with these people and on Reddit and Instagram, and it's a global phenomenon.
I will tell you, for us at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, not only are we so grateful for the attention you've given to missing kids, but also just missing issues in general, missing and exploited issues regarding children in general. Now the people who are Live PD viewers are fans of Nick Mick, and they follow Nick Mick.
They retweet our missing segments immediately by the thousands.
Yes, and they're interested in other things, the unsolved cases involving children.
So it brings them to Nick Mick to also
Yes.
look at other cases and other missing kids. That's great.
So it's not just the segments that air on Live PD. It has started its own thing.
Right.
And, I'm communicating on Twitter with your fans, and they've become our fans, which is just, it's amazing. So we are really grateful to you
it's
and
a
the
pleasure
show.
to be able to work with you guys again, and all of our old AMW friends over there, Gavin and Christine and John Walsh, of course, and Reggie, and just all
everybody.
we've gotten a second chance to roll again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's a really special thing.
Absolutely.
Tom, I could talk to you for hours.
I could.
But I think, will you come back?
I will. I will.
We'll give you a break. You can do more live PD and come back and we
I
can
will.
talk some more.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have some missing kids recovered in season 3 to talk about by then.
We will cross our fingers for that. Thank you, Tom,
All right.
for being
Thank
on
you, Angeline.
Inside Crime.
It's been a pleasure.
And that's it for this episode of Inside Crime, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm your host, Angeline Hartmann. If you have an idea for a future show, just go to our website, insidecrime.com. And remember, you can always reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is AngelineDC. I would love to hear from you. Finally, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode of Inside Crime.